What's up, everybody? It's Grizz here from Red Force TCG, your home for all things One Piece competitive content. And today, we have a very special video. It took us a little bit to get here, but we actually have our teammate and friend, Jordan Palmer, who got top 8 at the One Piece National Championship. Jordan, how you doing?
I'm doing well, Nathan. How are you doing?
I'm good. And additionally, we have a second guest. Well, not really a guest. It's, you know, we're all on the same team. But we have Ryan Tinney. How you doing, Ryan?
Not too bad.
Cool. Okay, well, let's get the obvious in there. Jordan, it's obviously been, I think, 2 weeks since Nats. You got top 8. Huge accomplishment for yourself and for us as a team. How are you sitting with it?
I'm gonna be completely honest. It still really hasn't set in as something that actually happened. I've been playing competitive card games since I was 13 years old. Past 14 years of my life, and tried to top many a Yu-Gi-Oh! National in my time, and just feeling very satisfied and very thankful for what I've been able to achieve here with One Piece.
Nice. Yeah, that's great. Well, cool. Well, before we get started, we got a few things. First, please check out our sponsor, Dueling Guard. You can use the code REDFORCE for a discount at checkout. So if you guys need deck boxes or mats or whatever you need for your fine TCG products, go check out Dueling Guard. Super cool guys, and we're grateful to have them as a sponsor. And additionally, shout out to our local game store, Mystic TCG, who actually also sponsors Jordan for Yu-Gi-Oh! Speed Duels. Oh yeah, we should mention you're like the GOAT of Speed Duels, right?
I've won a couple of Speed Duel events in my time.
Yeah. I think whenever it comes up tangentially, I think I've heard at least 2 or 3 stories of people going, "Isn't that the Speed Duel guy?" But yeah, and all the links for Dueling Guard and for Mystic will be in the description below. So you guys go check them out for your sealed product needs for Mystic and for your TCG accessories for Dueling Guard. But on to the meat of the episode. I think the official count is 7th place for Jordan's top 8 finish. So this was the Enel deck that you chose to play, and the reason why Ryan's here as well is because, Ryan, you were the progenitor of the deck on the team, and I'll say the designer, because I know it came from Japan sort of originally. Actually, do you just want to kind of go over the background of the deck and kind of how we got there?
All right, so first it kind of just started as a meme. I was bored and just picked it up because it sounded funny.
As all good ideas to start.
Just playing it on the sim, people would the amount of people just raging at you for you don't attack, you just pass, you just build a big board and kill them in 2 turns. I kind of like the play style, so I just shifted a couple of cards. It had the 2000, not 2000 Voltamaru, but the Bird Zap.
Mm-hmm.
Took out the Bird Zaps and placed a Cracker, just better into Sakazuki if they have top ends, because if they have top end, you can't really starve them. But that's where it started, and through a lot of grinding, this is where the list became.
Yeah. So, did the list come from Japan first? Did somebody do this in Japan or no?
Yes, it got. I forget which tournament it did, but it did well in at least one tournament. Gotcha.
Okay, I couldn't remember where we got the idea from originally, but yeah, that makes sense. So to kind of give you guys a little bit of background on the deck, this isn't like your normal Enel deck. We have basically no Sky Island cards. We have the quote unquote Big Mom package, but we're playing this in a very unique way. So Tinny, do you want to kind of you talked about it a little bit, but you kind of want to go into what the Starve game plan is and how you play the deck a little bit?
So pretty much the whole point of the deck is to build a board, go down to 1 life as quickly as possible so your Yamatos get max value, well, as far as healing. And you just Katakuris there to either get rid of any potential threats so your Yamato could also get more value, or just put Shirahoshi on top, which you're running it at 4 of, you're more than likely going to hit it, and the whole playstyle, you're never really swinging. So even on 5 or 6 Dawn, most of the time you have no issues just hard playing a Shirahoshi from hand.
Sure. And so yeah, so basically we're just not attacking, grinding out their board with Yamatos and with like Gadatsus and removal effects, building up a huge board and then swinging them over in one turn.
Yep, it is not. Yes, it is. It is fairly common to have a board of 5 characters, all 8,000 power or more.
It is. It's true. It's very common. So yeah, this was not a deck that those of us on the team that brought Sakazuki, we brought Sakazuki. I was very close to switching to this too. I really thought this was potentially the deck to bring. So Jordan, why did you bring the deck?
So the biggest reason why I wound up bringing the deck was because it just wound up feeling like the strongest possible choice of the format for me. The way that I wound up qualifying for Nationals was playing Whitebeard during set 4. I got a regional top 8 with it, and it just felt like the strongest, bulliest deck that let me sit on the most possible cards in my hand, and it felt very reminiscent to that. And it just kind of did me right. About 2 weeks before Nationals, we had, I think, an 80 or so person case tournament at my locals. I went X1 in Swiss and lost in the finals, and just felt that the deck was just right for Nats.
Yeah, definitely. It definitely kind of felt, at least in testing, that this was the most unique thing that we came up with, and that this was the deck to kind of like fight on an axis that I felt the field wasn't going to be ready for. So do you kind of want to talk? Do you maybe want to speak to that a little bit about like, how did that go during the day? Like, just like, do you feel like this was something that like you caught people off guard with, or do you feel like people kind of knew what was going on?
I definitely say that it was the deck that a lot of people just didn't really have preparation for. A lot of people obviously aren't really expecting you to start just chaining 7-drop big moms, which quite often gives you the advantage because they're more likely to make the incorrect decision with the card.
Kind of get into it. I know we've been looking at the deck list, but do you kind of just want to walk us through a little bit through the deck, and you can kind of go over, obviously what cards we're playing, but also like kind of what role the cards play, and go a little bit deeper into the deck on it?
Yeah, I mean, so for the most part, with the way that the deck's game plan works, and what we're generally going for, you're generally looking to just curve out. Your ideal hand is going to be something that's got a pudding, a Gadatsu, and a big body if you can, and you're ideally just looking to play the biggest, most value card that you can for your Dawn each turn. And you're usually looking to just aggressively take the hits as they come, trigger any attackable bodies that you can, and pretty much the only time that you're going to attack on the climb is going to be trading board. As you can see from the deck, we played 12 4-ofs and then a 2-of, because it's just the most streamlined that you could possibly get in terms of deck building. Obviously, if you're trying to select the cards that you want for your deck, you're going to want to pick the cards that have the most value, and they're going to want to be cards that you're going to want to see every game. So for that reason, we made the only 2-of in the deck Amaru, because it's non-searchable, and it only really shines in the Sakazuki matchup, which, while it is the most represented match of the format, unfortunately the card just really, really underperforms in the other matchups, which is what led it to be the 2-of in the deck.
Sure.
Kind of just going up through the curve. Pudding, it's obviously going to be a staple 4-of, because it's going to give you access to 8 out of your 12 top end, as well as your removal via Thunderbolt. The 3-drops, we've got your 8 2Ks between Amand and Beige. You've got 4 copies of Brûlé and 4 copies of Pero. I feel like these are all pretty self-explanatory. We've got the most valuable 2Ks that we can afford for yellow between Beige and then the searchable 2K of Amand. And then we've got 4 trigger blockers, and Pero is the best value 3-drop that you could possibly have. We play 4 copies of Cracker because it's the single best card in the deck against Sakazuki. First life trigger Cracker against Sakazuki is occasionally an auto win. Because at that point in time, you can divert from the deck's game plan of starving out your opponent and just take over the game via aggression from the double attack of the Cracker. Then for 5-drops, we've got 4 Shirahoshi and 4 Gadatsu. Since generally our plan is to starve out our opponent, we want to max out on Gadatsu so we can see it in our opening hand every game. And then we want to max out on Shirahoshi so we can ensure our ability to either trigger it or hard cast it on the climb. And then to round out the deck, we've got our 12 top end of the Big Mom, Katakuris, and Yamatos. You want every single one of these copies of these cards just because you want the ability to, once you reach your 7 down or above, play 1 copy of these cards every single turn.
Yeah.
For events, we've got 4 Thunderbolt and the 2 Amaru. Like we said before, Amaru wound up just being the weakest card in the deck, which is what led it to being the 2 of, but that by no means doesn't stop it from being incredibly strong. And then Thunderbolt, I think, kind of speaks for itself, especially given the utility of being searchable off both Pero and Pudding.
Yeah, cool.
I could add to that a bit if you want.
Yeah.
So as far as being different than other lists, there's no Ohm Holy simply because there's just no room for it. You can't fit Pudding and Shura with Ohm Holy plus Pero Sparrow. Brûlé is there instead of Sanji because generally you just want the blocker. You already have 8k, 9k bodies. You don't really need another 5k swing. And the Sanji trashing one from your hand kind of diverts from the game plan of the deck, because sometimes you'll hit a pair of Sparrow in life and you just won't even trigger it.
Sure.
It's not really worth the space on the board. And yeah, I think four copies of Shirahoshi because there is a significant portion of no counter in the deck, and Shirahoshi is very good at unbricking yourself.
Yeah. And just kind of going down that vein of the Sanji thought, I was going to bring that up of why we didn't play Sanji, and you obviously explained, why. But I think a lot of people will be looking at this and looking at kind of what we're saying the game plan is. Why only 8 2Ks?
So with Enel, when you get to, you just speed run down to 1 life, and at that point, half the people are afraid of attacking you, and the other half, they will, if they try to go all in, they risk the chance of you just, generally playing this deck, you're going to have 9 to 11 cards in hand. So even with only 8 2Ks, if they try going all in, you're generally still fine as long as you've seen Shirahoshi once or twice. And if they try to go all in, usually they end up just dead the next turn. Gotcha.
And then I think Ryan, you alluded to it earlier, but the original version of the deck had Bird Zap, and if you guys don't know what Bird Zap is, it's literally just Gadatsu's effect on a 2 dawn or a 2 dawn event. Do you kind of want to go through why that didn't end up making the cut? Because you would think that would be the perfect card to go with the game plan of the deck. It's just more copies of Gadatsu. It's cheaper. You could potentially kill 5 drops with it. Why did that end up getting cut?
The only reason I wasn't running that card anymore was because Sakazuki running top end. Without top end, this deck just destroys Sakazuki.
Right.
Even without Cracker, the Bird Zap it's even easier with Bird Zap. Even on 10 Dawn, Katakuring something into life and then Bird Zapping something 1 cost higher feels amazing. But
yeah,
with 9 drops, 10 drops, can't really afford to have that, and the extra body and Cracker is needed.
Sure. And yeah, as Jordan talked about earlier, situationally, Cracker just is an auto win, right? It's just, that makes a lot of sense. And yeah, and that's honestly why, us on the Sakazuki side, we brought 10 drop Kaidos, because not only this deck helped us realize why it was there and why it was good in the deck, but it really felt like if you were able to get to 10 drop Kaido against not only this version of Enel but against Sky Island Enel, you were in a good spot. And that makes perfect sense. Where if they're not running top end, Bird Zap and just going lower to the ground. But as the format changed, it really felt like a lot of people we were expecting Sakas to be on top end, right? Yeah, totally. Well, cool. Well, Jordan, you are the pilot. Do you kind of want to go over your matchups a little bit, and then we can kind of go from there. If maybe you have a brief explanation, about how this deck plays into each matchup. I know we still have a few more tournaments, so if people want to give this deck a try, maybe you can kind of give them some information to kind of go out there.
Yeah, so I mean, kind of just going down top end from like the most popular decks. Sakazuki is in my opinion, one of the deck's best matchups, especially if they're playing the more standard list that doesn't play top end via the 10 or 9 drops.
Yep.
If you're able to establish and determine that your opponent just doesn't play a top end, you have literally zero reason to ever attack them. And quite often, I would reach points in my game where my Sakazuki opponents would have 6 life because I have put 2 Borsalinos into their life, and they will just never be able to end the game against you, and you get to take all the time in the world to build your board of 5 bodies before you just end the game at your leisure.
Right.
If they are playing top end, the game does have to have its game plan adjusted, and you do have to play a little more aggressive. It's definitely a little bit more even, if not potentially slightly favored in their end, especially if the 10 drop they've played is 10 cost Kuzan. It is very hard for this deck to answer a 10 drop Kuzan.
Yeah.
But
honestly,
one thing to add to that.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So as far as if they're not on top end, or even if in one of my matches someone searched with brand new and trashed their 10 drop, so at that point I felt pretty comfortable in just never attacking. But if there's no Hinas in their trash and one on the field, Katakuring their Hina into life will sometimes just shut down their deck if they don't have another.
Yeah, that's very true. Yeah, and sometimes like as a soccer player, like if you don't have Hina, like the deck's like flexibility like just falls through the floor. Like there's just so many situations that you can't get out of when you don't have Hina that like if you take that option away from them, like I mean that's kind of what the whole deck was like predicated on. So like that makes a lot of sense. What about like versus like standard Sky Island Enel?
So I personally think that the matchup is definitely going to be favored in our end, especially if the Sky Island player is choosing to attack us, because that's going to just give us free cards as well as give us bodies for us to be able to attack back in turn. However, if the Sky Island player is able to identify that they should counter starve us and just try to go board for board, they do have the potential to be able to eke it out due to them playing due to them playing the 7 cost Russian L, whereas we do not. So it does give them the potential to take to the kill turn a turn early.
Sure. Do you feel like what about in the games where like they just go like holy and go like extremely wide? Like what is the response to that?
So if they're going super aggressive with Holies, generally you're able to kind of crack them back via Gadatsu, and usually your early board trades, you're just going to try to go for the trade with them. And since they're giving you the extra cards for you to be able to counter, as well as giving you the opportunity to hit triggers, usually you're able to efficiently trade back at their board despite the early aggression.
Gotcha.
Also with if they're hitting double Holies, usually one of them will be from hand, so they'd be down one card in hand. So if they ever do counter any of your swings into their board, they're going to be significantly behind.
Sure.
At least in hand size.
That makes sense. And correct me if I'm wrong, but like it feels like 7 Mom is just kind of just such like a mirror breaker in that matchup. Would you guys agree with that, or?
7 Mom if the Enel player, the opponent plays it while they're being aggressive, is a trap. You will just always give them the life. You'll Katakuri their 7 Mom into their life, and then you just play around making sure your 9-drop Yamato gets more value than their 9-drop Yamato.
Sure.
And generally speaking, your 9-drop Yamato has infinite more value than theirs, because there will almost always be a body for you to be able to remove with your Yamato, whereas they don't always have a target for theirs.
True. When their board is Holy, Gadatsu, Katakuri, and your board is 7 Mom, Katakuri, Yamato, it's like, yeah, they probably won't be able to kill much.
Well, there's even some games where 9-drop can kill. I've killed 7 Moms or Katakuris.
Yep. I have definitely killed some 7 Moms with my 9-drop.
Yeah.
Especially when, you're staring at them at 4 life because you haven't attacked, and you're at 2 life, and they decide to make their turn to play a 7 Mom. You get to give them the life, so you get to KO their big mom. It's great.
Sure.
And then if you're worried about them potentially killing yours, you just swing 5 at lead, and they're going to take it, because that's the first time you've ever swung.
True. What about in like the instance where like our deck has 7 Mom, they have Rush Enel. How do you guys feel like that plays out?
So because we have more access to the 8-cost Katakuri through both Parasparrow and Pudding, it gives us the ability to very, very easily answer their 7-cost Enel. Just because once you've already established 2 8K bodies, playing your Katakuri to aggressively target their Enel forces them to either trash a life there, and then turn off the effect, which then lets your 2 9K swings either force 4 cards or answer the Enel, or they just give you the Enel and it's gone.
Right. So in general, it's good.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay. Cool. What about Ploofy? What about Purple Luffy?
So that is unfortunately the deck's worst matchup, just because you do not have any capacity to be able to starve the deck, and you do have to take to be fighting them a little bit more aggressively than you would like. I, full disclosure, actually almost lost to that deck the very first round that I played after my buys.
I remember seeing that.
I got very lucky that my NL heal trigger was a beige, but sometimes a little luck is what you need.
I mean, and that's a viable, that's kind of what me and Cody were talking about in the pre-Nats video, where it's like, that's like part of the game. That's part of the deck, where it's just like, it's part of the X factor and why you decide to bring the deck is like, because over a long tournament, whether it happens round 1 or round 10, you might just win a game just based off that, by itself. So it's not, it's just part of the deck, So there's no shame to that.
As long as if the Ploofy player is playing to if they on their 5-Don turn play Kid Blocker instead of Magellan, as long as you have a Thunderbolt, I think at that point NL becomes favored, but only in that specific scenario.
Sure.
Yeah, it is very backbreaking when the Ploofy's 5-Don turn is Magellan, and then they follow it up with a second Magellan. It is so backbreaking.
Yeah, and if we haven't said it already, that's like the bad matchup, right? Like Ploofy is like the matchup you don't want to see.
I think the deck's worst matchup.
Right. Yeah, because just double Magellan or Magellan
besides
into Poly.
Nami.
Oh, sure.
No, we're gonna get to that
later. Shout out Chandler.
Shout out to top 64 Nationals competitor Chandler Allen.
True. But yeah, like I can definitely see why that would be the case. Either of the curves, either the double Magellan curve or just their standard up into Kaido, like. They just get there too quick, right? And they're taking their own life, so you can't starve them. So that makes perfect sense on why that's hard. Kind of going down the list a little bit. What about Katakuri? How does the deck? I know you actually didn't play a single Katakuri at Nats, but like, how do we feel about that matchup?
So I do feel that the Katakuri matchup is swung in our favor. However, much like in every matchup that Katakuri has, they do have the potential to just backbreak you with like double to triple Big Mom back to back.
Right.
But barring that factor, I think that our deck definitely has the stronger matchup, just because pound for pound, all of our cards kind of answer theirs a little bit better. Additionally, our crackers are just live out the gate.
Yes.
And the climb lets us just trade a little bit more efficiently.
Right.
I will add something I probably should have added earlier. As far as the game plan, you can't starve every matchup. For example, Purple Luffy, you will just if you're not starving, the whole game plan of the deck is just make as many 5K swings as you can to get as many cards out of their hand. So Purple Luffy is one of those you can't starve.
Yeah.
Katakuri you can't starve because if they just start dropping 10 moms, you just lose.
Right.
Yeah, so quite often in those matchups, and you are seeking to go first in those matchups where you need to play more aggressive. If your turn 1 play is Pudding, you quite often wind up swinging 5-5 on turn 2. And sometimes I'll actively choose to swing 5-5 over playing a Parasparrow.
Sure, yeah, 100%. Like, so against Ploofy, obviously, since we can't starve them, we got to go a little bit more aggressive. Same thing with Cat. And I think we already talked about if Sokka, if you can kind of glean about the top end. If they're not on top end, you can just hard starve them. And if they are, you kind of have to play a little bit more aggressively as well, right?
Yeah, yep. You can try to get Gadatsu value, but after that, that's the point where I would start attacking.
Sure. And then Sky Island and Nell, we're just starving, right?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, okay, cool. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense. But in general, we feel favored into Cat. You guys would say?
I would say so.
Okay, cool. You guys said the same. That's funny. Okay, lastly, I think the other relevant thing to talk about is the insane matchup. Tell me a little bit about Zoro.
So Zoro, it almost feels like the deck's freest matchup. Every single one of your cards will always have value. There will always be a body for you to Gadatsu or for you to Yamato. And it is so hard for them to try to actually close out and end the game. It is very, very difficult for them to try to amass the amount of swings and beat the amount of cards that you have in hand.
Yeah.
The only chance Zoro has, which unfortunately happened to me, is if your hand of 11 cards only has one card that counters in it.
Yeah.
And then even with the Shirahoshi just grabs more no counter.
Right.
That was a rather unlucky string of draws.
Yeah, 100%. So in general, Jordan, so I'm just gonna go over your matchups quickly, just exactly what you played on the day. You had 2 buys. You played against in Swiss. You played against 5 Sakazukis, a Pluffy, 1 Enel, and 1 Zoro. And so, like we've already said, and like we've said in previous videos too, in order to win a tournament, you kind of have to be one of the best players in the room and get lucky at the same time on the same day, right? So you played 5 Sakazukis, so those are all good matchups. A Zoro, that's a great matchup. An Enel, which was...
And it was Sky Island Enel, so it was the favored variant.
Yep, and then only 1 Pluffy. So we only hit 1 bad matchup out of 10, and you actually won that round.
Right.
So how did you feel about the deck choice overall?
Overall, I definitely would not have changed a single thing.
Sure.
I still stand by this deck, and I would still pick this deck if I were to play in a Treasure Cup in these next couple of weeks.
Yeah, definitely. Top 64 and top 16 were both Sokka, and then top 32 and top 8 were both Enel. So kind of standard stuff there, right? But your top 8 loss was to the eventual national champion, Jonas, right?
Yes. Unfortunately, I made a mistake in my game 1 where I allowed my first life trigger of Cracker to distract me and diverge from the deck's game plan, and I mistakenly decided to attack my opponent. And him having 2 extra cards from the double attack during the counter phase later on wound up ultimately costing me that game, which ultimately cost me the match, as there was very little agency at all in our game in game 2, and despite me not making any noticeable misplays, I just did not get there via the sequence of draws.
Sure.
So once again, that also just kind of goes to speak to the level of competition that we're talking about, at the national championship, where just the smallest of misplays or diversions from your game plan could cost you the entire match.
What would you say are like some of the big pros to bring this to a big tournament?
Well, I'd say that the biggest pro that you have right now is the fact that this deck is still going under the radar, in the sense that the national championship was won by the Sky Island variant. I believe that out of all the Enels that topped, I was one of only 2 that topped with this variant.
I believe that's right.
And the other variant did not appear to be playing the full Star version based on how it was built.
Yes.
And as such, I think that, if you are able to study this deck's game plan and understand its matchups, you definitely have a significant advantage from the unfamiliarity that your opponents are likely going to be with this variant.
I'll even add, like, some of the off-meta decks you'll see, like red-purple Law. This deck, you put 1 card in their life with 8-drop Katakuri, your Yamatos kill anything they ever play.
Mm-hmm.
Unless they're on Ace, but...
Yeah, it feels like this deck just kind of crushes the sort of like B and down decks, right? Like the rogue decks.
Yeah, most of them. There's some black yellow Big Mom does the same thing,
true.
but better.
True. Yeah, true.
And I will say, we kind of touched on it earlier, but this deck does have an auto loss matchup. Unfortunately, you will never beat Nami with this deck. I am sorry to say.
You need multiple Crackers and multiple Thunderbolts to beat Nami.
Sure.
Yeah. We spent a lot of extensive time testing with, in our opinion, the best Nami player in North America.
No, he
Chandler
is.
Allen.
He mathematically, he was the highest placing Nami player. And watch the previous video.
We have an almost 0% win rate versus him in this matchup. So, if you play versus Nami, just hard mulligan for Crackers and Thunderbolts and pray.
Sure. Or maybe like one or two things that people should be looking out for if they're picking up this deck to maybe play like an online treasure cup or like a regional or something. What would you say like is like maybe like not obvious or just something to watch out for?
I would say with at least with the last treasure cup, with all of the top placing purple Luffys, if more people are on purple Luffy because it counters Enel, and Enel won the national championships, that is a big downside.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I mean, just because you did well here doesn't mean that in the weeks to come, like the meta can't evolve and the kind of the arms race of the meta going, you know, okay, Enel's good, I'm gonna play Pluffy. Okay, Pluffy's good, I'm gonna play Sokka. Okay, Sokka's good, I'm gonna play Enel. Like that obviously keeps going, right? So just be on the lookout for that, right? Like,
yeah.
Well, Jordan and Tinney, I super appreciate you guys coming on and doing this with me. Jordan, do you have any shout outs before we go?
Number one shout out, as always, has to go to my partner, Kara, for putting up with the endless hours of One Piece testing and letting me and supporting me and me going on these trips and competing. And then the other biggest shout out has to go to Ryan here for all the hours of Discord that we put in together, and by we put in together, I mean I watched him play the simulator as he streamed and tried to understand his thought processes. So seriously, Ryan, thank you so much. I love you, man.
Oh, no problem.
Shout out to the Red Force TCG, because honestly, I wouldn't be here without you guys, the whole squad.
We appreciate it. And yeah, I mean, Chandler's shout outs were so heartfelt. He's just like, I just really love you guys. Like, but yeah, I think that's what makes our team work. I think we all are really good friends, and we just strive to play at the highest level. So, well, cool, man. Well, dude, congratulations, man. We're all super proud of you. And yeah, let's hope for a repeat performance as we go on into year 2 of One Piece. I know we're all super excited, and yeah, well, thank you guys for watching, and yeah, we'll catch you on the next one. Don't forget to check out Dueling Guard, check out Mystic TCG. All links will be in the description below, and we'll see you guys later. Peace. Say bye.
Later.
Jordan, say bye.
Oh, bye.
Nice.